Happy New Year, or Happy New Year's Eve. It's the last day of 2020. That could be the entire blog post right there. It's the last day of 2020. This year was nothing like what I thought a year ago when I was ready to turn that calendar page from 2019 that I was quite happy to say goodbye to 2020, which sounded oh so exciting and new. There were all these new digits and it had all this potential. It was going to be magic and wonderful. It was going to be the year of 2020 hindsight, all of that. And it turned out to be the year through which to endure. Didn't see it coming, did we? And we had a good month, January was stellar. At least it was for me. My business was getting off the ground. I had a lot of hope about a lot of things that were going on in my life. My finances looked like they were finally taking off with my business. I was doing all kinds of art. I discovered that we had just crossed over the apex of the 200-year overlap between the age of Pisces and the age of Aquarius, and that 200-year overlap, we'd gone over the hump, and it was going to get brighter and better and more wondermous. And I still believe that. I still believe that's the case, although sometimes we have to look at the shadow side of things before we can enter the light. It's what winter solstice is all about, and it's what the collective shadow is all about. And I do believe that the events of 2020, as difficult as they are, and the dark night of the soul always is by its very nature, this was our collective dark night of the soul. But you couldn't have told me back in February when I started becoming more and more aware that this virus of the year was going to turn into something much more than just a nebulous threat, that it actually turned into something tangibly manifested, that by the end of the year we would still be contending with it, and in fact still in the climbing of the crescendo, because the apex of that is yet upon us. Or we could be at it. These things are seen in hindsight. We have to look backwards at them to be able to tell what they are. But I am filled with a sense of hope, a sense of daring hope that we're turning the corner, that we're rounding the bend. Hopefully it's not a case of, as you turn the corner, things will get better, only to discover that it's a round building. It's an igloo and there is no corner to go around, just this perpetual curve. Hopefully that's not the case. I do sense in my gut, my intuitive hunch is that just like the winter solstice has come and we're on the other side of it, so too we're on the other side of all that this year was meant to prepare us for. I do hope that each of us has been able to dive into the depths of whatever we needed to look at in ourselves and in the collective consciousness, to be able to face the dragons that we're afraid of, the darkness that terrorizes us, the shadows that we're ashamed of, so that we can look all of those things in the eye and reclaim them and make them ours. I think we're meant to do that. And I do hope that we keep doing that. I know I'm going to do that as a way of life. The latest tool in my arsenal has been existential kink shadow work. And yeah, I'm going to bring it up a lot. It's what I'm going to do. I'm going to voice the hell out of this. So unsubscribe if you don't want to hear more about it. It's just one tool. It's really just one tool. As I was describing to someone earlier, this particular tool, the purpose of it is not just for the sake of finding and integrating the shadow, as crucial as that is. The real work for it is to be able to discover what's underneath it. What is the part of me that is operating with a false sense of who I am, that is therefore empowering the shadow that then runs the show of my life from the subconscious. I keep discovering with each tool that I find, that I get trained in, that I practice with, I keep discovering that the real culprit, the real thing that gets in the way of us living out the lives that we really want to live, that we came here to live, although this whole discovery process is part of why we're here, the difficulty, the challenge, or what's at the root of every challenge we encounter is actually a lie that we believe about ourselves. See, it's not the things that once happened to us that continue to hurt us in our adult lives. There are things that happened to us, to each of us in childhood, because none of us escapes childhood unscathed. There are things that happened to us when we were emotionally vulnerable as young children, so pre-birth to roughly age 7. In that time frame, we were primarily emotional beings. And the things that happened to us then don't keep hurting us. That's now history. That's finished, that's done. And while we can forget the past, what we can't relinquish from ourselves without doing this work is what happened to us because of what happened to us. So when something happened to us that hurt us, we, as innocent, emotionally vulnerable children, formed conclusions about ourselves. Lies. We believed lies about ourselves then that became subconscious, that we have then unconsciously carried throughout the panoply of our lives, that keep affecting us like a script, like a program, like conditioning. So again, it's not what once happened to us that keeps hurting us. It's what we concluded because of what once happened to us. The lies we believe about ourselves, about the world, that continue to hurt us. These lies tend to be very simple because the conclusions that we formed as little children were simple. Things like, I'm not good enough. I'm not loved. I don't matter. I'm not important. I'm not smart enough. I'm not capable. Some version of I don't deserve to be loved and accepted. And we can conclude things like, I have to try harder. I have to earn love. I have to be good enough. I have to fool people. There's something wrong with me. I have to hide that. And that's what rules us. That's what controls us. That's what keeps showing up in our lives, in our relationships, in our careers, in our endeavors, in all of the ways in which life doesn't seem to work for us. At the root of that, there's a false belief, a lie about yourself. Because in truth, each of us, as a manifestation of the all, is inherently good enough. And the fact that you, that I, that anyone exists is evidence that we have value, that we have inherent and incalculable and infinite worth. Just as you are. Just as you are. It's like the story of the clay Buddha. So the story goes, there's a clay Buddha. I believe it was Thailand, Burma. And the Buddha, a clay Buddha, was revered and worshipped, at least revered, by the monks who were charged with keeping it safe and guarding it and giving it reverence. But they were needing to relocate it. And in the process of trying to do so, first of all, they discovered it was very heavy, and there was a crack in the clay as they were trying to move it. So they decided to wait, let it settle, and they would come back to try again. And one of the monks was given the task of guarding it overnight. This was, as I recall in the story, 1954. So the monk, in the middle of the night, took his flashlight and started shining it on the Buddha to check it out, to make sure there were no more cracks. And when his light hit on the crack that they'd already discovered, a strange thing happened. There was a glint from behind the clay. Something reflected back to him. So he got closer to it, and he saw that it was gold. And he chipped a little bit around the crack. And as more clay fell off, there was more gold. And he kept chipping, and the more he chipped, the more the gold was revealed, until finally all the clay was chipped off, and there was a golden Buddha. And 500 years prior, long before this story had been realized, the golden Buddha was covered over with mud, so that the invading army that was coming in would not recognize its value and plunder it. They saw a clay Buddha. Who values a clay Buddha? So they bypassed it. And then those monks died, and eventually the secret was buried, just as the golden Buddha was buried in the clay. And it wasn't until later, when they tried to move it, and a crack revealed the truth. Because our cracks, those very things that we think are flaws, will actually reveal our inherent value underneath them. Because inside each of us is this beautiful, brilliant, perfect, golden, shining being of incredible value. But those years of conditioning, of trauma, of wounds, and the lies we believe about ourselves from earliest childhood have served like mud covering over us. We think it's protection, but it's actually not allowing the true light of us to shine out. And after a while, we start believing that we are the clay, and we forget that we're the gold. But you're the gold. That's you. That's who you really are. That's your true self, the gold. What else could you be, coming from the all in all, here in human form, choosing to forget your glory? But you're meant to remember it. You're meant to crack so that your light shines through, so that you can remember that you're gold. So what are your cracks? How have you cracked this past year? Have you felt ashamed of those cracks? Are you willing to realize, or at least to consider the possibility, that those cracks were intended to let your light shine out? And all it takes is someone who's willing to shine their light on you so that you can reflect back that light. Maybe that's what we're meant to do as human beings, that we're meant to shine whatever light we've got on each other, so that those cracks that happen in our lives, those things we're ashamed of, those things we're afraid of, those things that we denounce and despise about ourselves, those cracks, when someone else shines the light on them, reveal who you really are. And what if you and your light shiner could help each other chip off that clay, that layer of conditioning that's not you, to let the you that is you out in all your glory? What if you could be grateful for your cracks? What if you could dare to discover that you're really the gold underneath? What if you could reveal the shadow and the lies underneath, those things you believe about yourself that aren't true, that cover you over and dim your light? And what if the world needs you, me, each of us, to let the real us out for such a time as this? What if we're here for that? What if we signed up to go through 2020, the year of the cracks, so that we can start to shine? I like the idea. It makes me excited and hopeful about the future. It makes me want to let the light shine out of me and to inspire it to shine out of others. Yeah, I like that idea. What if we could shed what's not us? What if we could take that risk? And it would be a risk, because that clay has felt like protection, self-protection. And it served a purpose once, just like the clay on the Buddha once served a purpose to protect it from being invaded and plundered. But it also diminished it. So the self-protections that we develop as children, which were necessary then, they saved us then. They become our limitations. They limit us. They prevent us from being who we really are later. What if we could remove those things we cling to that we imagine are our self-protections and dare to be seen? Dare to be seen. I want to do that this next year. I want to remove whatever's not me. As I'm saying this, I'm realizing I'm getting really warm. This is a wool sweater and it's feeling really warm, so I want to remove it. Funny how that works. So, as we go into this new year, as we say goodbye to 2020, and we look at it in hindsight, because 2020 is hindsight, can we look back and take inventory and look at the ways in which we felt like we failed, felt like we came up short, felt like we were limited, felt like life wasn't working for us? And we could find the benevolence in that. We can find those cracks and we can say, thank you. Thank you for showing me what needed to be shed so that I can shine out. I'm going to do that. I'm going to write those things down tonight. I'm going to reframe my 2020 story from the perspective of the all that wants to shine out through me. What are yours? If you feel like it, and you don't have to, but if you feel inspired to share, come back and write in the comments section, what are the things you thought were flaws and problems and limitations in your own life, perhaps even failures in your own mind? And how are they actually, possibly, even if you don't know yet, how are they possibly the cracks in the clay that reveal your gold? I'd love to hear. I think I'll come back and share mine too after I do my work. So, happiest of New Year's. May everything that 2020 prepared you to grow into, to discover, to experience, may that be revealed and manifested and fulfilled in 2021. I'll see you on the other side. Congratulations. You survived the test. Go forth and shine.